Okay, well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us on today's webinar, How to Level Up Your E-commerce Accounting Services, A2X and Fathom Workflows. I myself am particularly excited about this webinar because it lends itself to my overly techie, highly nerdy side. And I also get to experience it as an attendee similarly to all of you because we have the wonderful Amy Crooymans, who's product marketing manager here at A2X, and James Erving, head of sales at Fathom, who are going to be demonstrating an A2X and Fathom workflow for e-commerce clients. Now, you might be asking yourself, why am I here if I'm also an attendee? I'll be helping with the slides. I'll be managing the Q&A, and I'll just be setting the stage for both Amy and James as they discuss this topic. In today's webinar, we'll be discussing why A2X and Fathom for e-commerce clients, so why this tech stack lends itself really well to that specific market segment. We'll talk about the e-commerce accounting challenge and why accounting for e-commerce businesses is a little bit more complicated than traditional brick and mortar retailers, and why you would even need an A2X and Fathom tech stack in the first place. And then we'll dive into the nitty gritty of A2X and Fathom, providing an in-depth demonstration, then answering all of your questions throughout. So the first question, why A2X and Fathom for e-commerce clients? Well, the easiest way to answer this is over the summer, we did something called Camp A2X, where A2X had the opportunity to bring together 50 of the top e-commerce accountants and bookkeepers in the world to Toronto. And A2X and Fathom, as part of a core technology stack for practices servicing e-commerce, kept coming up time and time again. Unbeknownst to us, these two solutions were being used in tandem at many of the top e-commerce accounting practices in the world. And the reason why, well, actually, I can get into it, but it's probably better for me to let the partners actually speak for themselves. So I'm going to be showing a video where they're actually describing why they're choosing to use A2X and Fathom within their practice. And then we're going to jump right into the e-commerce accounting challenge and let Amy walk you through kind of the problem that both A2X and Fathom is trying to solve. So again, we'll let the partners speak for themselves here and talk about this tech stack.
So you've got to have confidence in the numbers, and bringing that data into your accounting system in a way that you can trust it is critical. And so we could look at other ways to get that data in. But the reality is we want our clients to have accurate numbers. And so having that partnership with A2X to bring the information into QuickBooks or Xero, and then have the ability for Fathom to help us report that out and tell that story in a graphical way, in addition to the tabular data, the way that flows just creates for our clients the ability to understand the data and have confidence that it's right.
I think, Cindy, you mentioned a key point, right? Like, we're really in the business of selling confidence, right? And clarity in people's numbers. And you touched upon one of the aspects of confidence is accuracy, but I'd add also timeliness is critical. And I think what Fathom in conjunction with Xero and QuickBooks Online and A2X provides us is an ability to seamlessly, almost in real time, have available to us these KPIs based on the integrations.
Those were both brilliant points to the both of you. The only thing that I can add is the way in which the data is interpreted. Our clients love Fathom because they can look at what's being presented and very simply go, oh, I get it. It's not a complex Google sheet with 50 tabs where it looks like it's a formula for NASA to send a rocket to space. It's not that. It's beautiful, it's simple, it's concise. And at the end of it all, they latch onto the information and actually internalize it, which is what I think more than anything that we do, that's the most important part of it all. We're doing God's work, but if they're not understanding what's happening, it doesn't matter. So you being that bridge for them to understand and get what's going on, invaluable.
I couldn't have said it better myself. So that was actually taken from a recent webinar that we did with Bookkeep Ninjas, an audit on e-commerce financial KPIs for the holiday season. And they actually unprompted, again, talked about this tech stack, which was the motivation behind putting together this webinar. So I'm going to let Amy and James jump into the nitty gritty. And then I'll be monitoring the chat and the Q&A. So if you have any questions throughout, please do feel free to ask them, and I'll make sure they get addressed whenever possible. So passing the mic over to Amy.
Brilliant. Hi, everyone. So I'm Amy. I'm based out of New Zealand, and I always make a bit of a joke that hopefully you can understand what I'm saying. But if not, Jeff's there in the question, so feel free to reach out if anything doesn't make sense. But what I thought I'd do is start by giving some context to, I guess, why e-commerce accounting is challenging, and also why a lot of businesses, even if they do have financials, struggle to perhaps understand them. And so I know I don't need to stress, I know there was a lot of accountants and bookkeepers that registered for this webinar, and I'm sure for them, I don't need to stress the importance of having accurate financials. But I guess in an e-commerce space, the one thing I do want to stress is how competitive it is, and so why it's necessary to have these numbers. And it can really be the difference in a successful business and a not successful business. So, and we do have some stats here on why e-commerce businesses actually fail. So 32% of e-commerce businesses fail because they run out of cash. 29% of businesses fail because of cost, pricing, and balances. So potentially pricing their products too low. And many other businesses fail because they try to scale too quickly. I think probably one of the most heartbreaking parts to this stats is that many of them don't see it coming because they don't know their numbers, so or they don't understand their numbers. So either the data that they have coming in is inaccurate or incomplete, or might be painting the wrong picture, or it might be that they have their financials for them, but they're sitting in a drawer because they don't actually understand how to interpret those numbers. That's why we always recommend that e-commerce businesses should work with an accountant or bookkeeper, and we do have a really strong directory on the A2X website where sellers can find an accountant or bookkeeper. And if you're interested, A2X does have a partner program. But even if they are working with an accountant or bookkeeper, someone's still got to make sure that that data is going into their accounting software and that it's in a way that the customer can understand. So, this might all seem really obvious, great data formatted in a way that makes sense, but unfortunately, e-commerce accounting is really challenging, especially if you're comparing it to, I guess, traditional brick and mortar retail. And there's a number of reasons why that's the case. The other thing to really keep in mind is that a lot of e-commerce businesses start out and they grow really quickly, and it opens a lot of opportunities for them. They might start selling overseas, they might start selling more products. The world of e-commerce provides a lot of opportunities, but unfortunately it creates some really challenging accounting situations. So why is that? Let's dive into a few of the points here. So the first one of why it is really challenging to account for e-commerce is the payout source. So if we're looking at Amazon, for example, Amazon sellers actually only get paid every 2 weeks. So every 2 weeks they get a deposit that's hitting their bank account. That might mean they might get, in 1 month, they might get 3 payouts, and in another month, they might only get 2 payouts. And so it makes end of month and even end of financial year really challenging, because they might receive a payout on, say, the 1st or 2nd of a month, that actually the majority of those sales were for the previous month. The other thing, I guess, if you're looking at Shopify, for example, the sellers are paid far more frequently, so it's likely that they'll get a payout into their bank account, perhaps every day. But Shopify also provides a whole range of gateways that you can add to your Shopify store as well. So PayPal, Stripe, things like that can all be added to the Shopify store, which is great for the user experience because it provides the buyer with a lot of opportunities to sell, but it can create some accounting challenges as well, because first of all, you have to identify where that money is going, and then it might hit the bank account or it might not. You might have to go and encourage or initiate a payment to come out. And then to try and tie all of those different payouts back to the specific orders is really challenging, because you might get from PayPal, for example, you might get 1 payout a month, and some of these payment gateways are used for other things. There's also a whole bunch of challenges that come with these payment gateways, and that sometimes they can initiate refunds and sometimes they do credits and things like that. So again, a lot of these apps are awesome from a user experience perspective, but when you're trying to account for them, it can start to get really, really challenging. The next thing that gets really complicated is there's a bunch of different transactions to account for. So what will happen, and I'll show you this when I do the demo, is that the money hits the bank account. So the seller will receive a deposit in their bank account from the payment gateway or from Amazon, for example. And it's really tempting for that seller to just think that that whole deposit is their sales, but it's not the sales, it's the net sales. So what's happened is there will be all sorts of things that have been taken out of that deposit and need to be accounted for. So Amazon in particular, I think there's over like 300 different transaction types that might have been included. So there might be some FBA fees, there might be shipping income, there might be reimbursements, there might be credits. There's all sorts of things that might be included within that deposit that you need to be splitting out. And a lot of sellers, I guess, might not sort of be worried about the different level of transaction details. But as I said earlier, it's such a competitive space, especially at the moment with lots of different sellers on Amazon, and the way, it's just getting more and more challenging. The difference of understanding how much you're discounting a product, or how much you can afford to discount a product, or how much you can spend on advertising becomes kind of make or break for sellers. And also too, it becomes really important when you're comparing different sales channels. You might want to look at how expensive it is for you, or how beneficial it is for you to sell on Amazon compared to your own Shopify store, for example. And then the last point that makes it really complicated is tax. So there is an awesome opportunity when you're selling online that you can start selling to a bunch of different places that you wouldn't be selling to if you had a brick and mortar store. It makes it easy to start selling overseas in different states, but then it starts to get really complicated with tax. So you might be selling in different states that have different tax laws, or even overseas. And so also that brings in different currency issues. Amazon does have or marketplaces in general, so Etsy and Walmart are part of what's called marketplace facilitated tax. So it's a policy where Amazon collects the tax and remits it on your behalf, but it's not always included in every single state or every different country. So that is something, I mean, a lot of sellers think, okay, great, Amazon's taking care of my tax, but they're actually responsible for making sure that it's been calculated correctly and has been accounted for correctly. They want to make sure that they're tracking both the tax that's been collected by Amazon and what's remitted, and ensuring that that's correct. And unfortunately, we do hear stories of that not being correct, and sellers thinking that they've paid their tax and then ending up with a tax bill that they need to pay because they perhaps weren't understanding their income, or not tracking things properly. So all of these components, like I keep saying, e-commerce is awesome. There's an awesome opportunity there, but it does become this really challenging thing to be accounting for. And unfortunately, often accounting is an afterthought. And it may actually seem quite obvious also to just go and get this data from the platforms themselves. So for example, you might think, okay, well, Amazon's really complicated. Surely there's a report within Amazon that I can go and get to get this information, and the same with Shopify. But the problem is it's really difficult to find a single source of truth. So often you have to be downloading massive reports to try and get all this data, and then trying to link it back to the payout that's at the bank account is extremely challenging. So the good thing is it's not all doom and gloom, and that's the whole reason why A2X is here. So A2X is an automation tool. So what it does is it brings your data out of your sales channels, and it creates an entry that will reconcile in your accounting software. So if I just jump through, so a little bit of context to where A2X kind of came from. So A2X has been delivering accurate automation for e-commerce sellers since 2013, and we also work really closely with accountants and bookkeepers. A2X has a lot of data. So obviously been processing since 2013. We've processed over 1.1 billion orders. And so A2X will often, another kind of point to keep in mind with these different marketplaces in particular, is that they'll often add a different transaction. So because A2X has access to all of this data, it's got a really strong understanding of these different platforms. And then also we have thousands of 5-star reviews. So don't take it from us. Feel free to go and have a look around about A2X. The team has awesome reviews across a lot of the different app channels. So this is kind of what I was touching on before. So I guess this is the first step of A2X. So I mentioned that it's not actually all that easy to get this data from your e-commerce channel. This is kind of what the data looks like from Amazon. And this, I think this was only for a seller that was doing about 10 orders a month. So you end up with lines and lines and lines of data that you have to try and make sense of. So that's why A2X is here. So it will pull in this data into A2X, and it will start to categorize all of your different transaction types. So it will split out things like sales, fees, refunds, and more, so that you can understand the different transactions. It will then create a really nice entry for your accounting software. So if you're selling on Xero, A2X will create an invoice. And if you're selling on QuickBooks Online, A2X will create a journal entry. And you can see here everything has been split out. So you've got a really nice list of the different transaction types, the value that was calculated for that month. And then you can also see there the different chart of account that A2X will be posting that through to. And this is really nice because this is when it links up with the data that Fathom creates their reports with. And then what happens is it matches perfectly to your bank account. So this is a real key difference with A2X, is that we're not just focused on getting in data. The whole thing with A2X is that we're focused on reconciling the payout. So the seller will see a deposit in their bank account, and then they'll see the A2X journal entry next to the payout ready to be reconciled. So that's a pretty good overview. What I can do now is I'll jump into a demo, but I guess the key thing to keep in mind with the A2X side is that the challenge that A2X is solving is bringing in really good, accurate data. And then the benefit of that, when you have great data in your accounting software, is that you can use it both within your accounting software, but you can also use it with Fathom to create awesome reports that are also really understandable for your sellers. So where I actually thought I'd start the demo is in a software that you're probably quite familiar with. So this is just in the banking screen of QuickBooks Online. So the problem that we often face, we come across that sellers have been doing before they come to A2X, is that they have been seeing these deposits coming into their bank account. So you can see here, this seller has got payouts coming in from Etsy, BigCommerce, eBay, all coming into their banking screen, which is great. They're getting paid. But what they'll often do is they'll just click this button here that says add. And so what that is doing is it's sending it just to a sales account. It's quite understandable that they do this because they perhaps don't understand the challenges that I outlined before, where this payout actually includes a lot of different transaction details that they need to be accounting for. And also, to be fair, I guess the accounting softwares are encouraging them to reconcile these lines. So it's really tempting to just click on this button. But the problem is if you're doing that, you're putting through a sales value to your sales account that isn't actually your sales. And so that's what we'll identify within A2X. So I jump over to the A2X screen. So this is an A2X account. It's just set up with some demo data. And so what happens is you come in and you connect your QuickBooks. You only need to do that once. You connect your QuickBooks. And if you've got different organizations or instances within your QuickBooks for different clients, then it's really easy to link up the right one to the right account. Each A2X individual account will be connected to one sales channel. So you can see here that this account is connected to Amazon, and then you do your accounts and tax mapping. So then what happens is once you're connected to A2X and your Amazon account and QuickBooks is all connected up, we will start pulling in data from Amazon, and we'll create the entries that I mentioned before. So you can see here, the seller has got deposits coming in from Amazon. They're selling on both Amazon.com and Amazon Canada. And so you can see here the A2X has created an entry that is ready to be posted. So we'll just click to review this entry. Cool. So this is where A2X really comes into itself. So you can see here that this is the deposit that will have hit the bank account. So the seller will have been paid this value here. And so what then happens is A2X will break down all of that data and create an entry that perfectly reconciles. And it will also identify all of the different transaction details. So when I mentioned before that Amazon has over 300 different transaction types, this is where you can start to see what I mean. So these are all of the different transactions that will have occurred on Amazon that have impacted the payout that the seller has received. So if we scroll down, we can see there's a principal amount there. So that is the sales that they have made. And then also you can see here refunds, you can see reversals, you can see shipping that's been charged, you can see promotions that have been run, you can see there's a bunch of different fees and charges, there's tax that's being collected, and there's also tax that's been paid, and then there's tax that's been refunded. So you can also see, you can start to see, or I guess get a bit of a picture of the level of complication that there is on selling on platform like Amazon, but you can also see the benefit of splitting out this data, because it means that you're accounting for all of the different transactions correctly. You can also see in this column here, this is the account that A2X will be posting this data through to. So you can see that the commissions are going to a seller and fees account, and this is something you can control within A2X. So this, you can see here that what happens is A2X is splitting out all of the data and posting it to the correct account. So then if we do jump back over, so what you would then do is you can post that through to QuickBooks. So if we jump back into the banking screen here, you'll see that there are some matches that have been found. So instead of just posting this whole value to sales, you can see that a match has been identified. So this one here is actually the exact value that we were looking at in the A2X screen. And if we look at this, we can bring up the journal entry. Cool. And so this is what it looks like within QuickBooks. So you can see all of the different transactions have been split out. You can see the description and the account that it has been posted through to, and it will all balance to the money that you've received. And you can see that all of the accounts will have the appropriate amount posted through. You can also see down the bottom that A2X is attached to settlement report. So what we often get asked is that sellers say, that's all very well, but how do I know what orders have been included within this entry? We do have a settlement report, and the benefit of attaching it as a file that you can look up if you ever needed to check an order is that it's not going to swamp your accounting software. So it means that rather than trying to put every single order into your accounting software, you have a really nice summary that reconciles and provides you with just the accounting information that you need to know, and then you've got an attachment there if you ever need to look up individual orders. So then all the seller needs to do is just click the match, and that entry will be reconciled. I can click on that so you can see that entry will be reconciled and all of the correct amounts will be posted through to the accounting software. So that's, I guess, a pretty good overview of what A2X does. The one thing I will just show you is the accounts and tax mapping pages, so you can understand how the different transactions get posted through to different accounts. So this is like the control center, I guess, for A2X. So we'll identify all of the different possible transactions on your Amazon store and provide you with some detail. And then this is where you select which account within your QuickBooks. So if I click on there, you can see all of the different chart of accounts within QuickBooks, and then you can select which account you would like to be posted through to. This may look a little daunting, but A2X can automate this process for you all the way to actually creating the accounts within your QuickBooks for you, if that's what you like. You can come in and do the automated setup. So A2X will do the mapping for you, and it will also create the accounts you need in the accounting software, or you can choose to do it yourself. So that's a pretty good overview. The one thing I will also just quickly show you is the difference with Shopify. So I can show you Shopify UK account. So the difference to keep in mind with Shopify is that sellers get paid a lot more frequently. So you can see here the Shopify payments that are coming in, but you can also see the different payment gateways that are on the seller's side as well. So you can see that A2X will split out that data for you and create an entry just for those payment gateways. It doesn't matter what payment gateway you have on your website. Some sellers have like 10 or 20 gateways, and those will all be split out, and you have some choice around how those are posted through. There are just some transaction fees that you need to account for, but if that's something you would like some help on, we can assist you in getting set up. A2X does have one additional feature. This is kind of the core part of what A2X does. Another feature that is really popular is our cost of goods sold. So essentially what A2X does, I'll just look on this one here to show you. A2X can also create a COGS entry that will be posted through to your accounting software. So what we will do is identify all of the different SKUs that were sold. So for example, if you had 100 SKUs, we will be able to identify, let me just show you here. We'll be able to identify the quantity of each one that was sold, and then you can enter a cost into A2X. So you can either enter this manually into A2X, or we can connect to a Google Sheet and pull those numbers in. And then from there, we can say, okay, this value, so you had 24 pounds worth of stock that was sold. And so what then happens is we post an entry over to the accounting software. And so it would reduce the inventory asset account. So most sellers would have for example, they might have £10,000 worth of inventory, so that would reduce by $24, and they would post that to a cost of goods sold expense account. So the benefit of that COGS entry is that it will help you do accrual accounting and only expensing the inventory as it's sold. So I think that's a pretty good overview of what A2X does. I guess the key point here is that it helps with the e-commerce accounting challenge of all the different complicated areas that go with it. Probably one other thing to keep in mind is that we will always put the transactions into the month that they occurred. So you've got nice accrual entries. So in a nutshell, you've got great data going into QuickBooks Online that you can then use with a tool like Fathom. So nice segue over to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Amy. That was a great overview. Yeah, it is a perfect segue because A2X can really help streamline the COGS and revenue accounting on the e-commerce side, and that's hugely valuable. And we do reporting and analysis and forecasting, but that relies on clean data and timely data. So we're really excited to be partnering with A2X on the e-commerce side of things. So the question is, once you have that data clean and ready to go in the accounting system, what do you do with it? And we found there's kind of two problems that we're looking to solve. So on the client side, on the business side, e-commerce companies lack the tools to really understand their past performance and then plan for the future and gain clarity and confidence in their numbers. And off the back of that as well, accounting firms struggle to deliver advisory services in a scalable and engaging way. So this is what Fathom aims to solve. What if we could change this and make e-commerce reporting and advisory services fast and flexible, personalized and tailored to the business, as automated and scalable as possible, and in the end, profitable for your firm? So Fathom provides a toolkit for e-commerce. We provide financial analysis tools, management reporting, forecasting, as well as multi-entity features. If you do have clients that have multiple entities in different countries, we can do multi-currency consolidation as well. So just kind of a visual of where we fit into things. Obviously, A2X is helping with that clean data flow into the general ledger system. And then we integrate directly with QuickBooks Xero as well as Excel and allow you to pull that data out and use it for your reporting and forecasting. I'll go over some of these tools in a demo, but just a quick overview. Fathom provides analysis tools, which are kind of like a dashboard, online interactive tools that allow you to interact with your numbers and analyze things. They also allow your clients to log in and view their results very quickly in a visual way. Fathom provides forecasting. So we have a three-way cash flow forecasting tool that allows you to create detailed forecasts as well as tie your business plans to that forecast. So this links the profit and loss, the balance sheet, and the cash flow statement together and keeps them in sync. So your assumptions on the profit and loss automatically flows through to the balance sheet and cash flow statement, ensuring that you have an up-to-date picture of future cash flow, profitability, and other metrics. And this updates automatically from your accounting system each day. So every time it updates from QuickBooks or Xero, it's going to bring in those most up-to-date actuals and roll your forecast forward. So it's really a live model that stays up to date as you work. And then, of course, reporting. So we build off of the reporting that's available in the accounting systems, and we allow you to create more detailed, more robust, and more tailored reports for specific industries like e-commerce. Fathom works with any industry, so we're horizontal, but we certainly see a lot of e-commerce businesses finding value from Fathom, as well as e-commerce focused accountants. And then some advanced reporting functionality. I mentioned multi-currency consolidation. So if there's an e-commerce business that operates in multiple countries and they have an entity in each country, you can do the consolidation in Fathom across multiple currencies, and it really streamlines that process. You can also compare and rank entities against each other based on their performance and get a holistic picture of the global business. We also support divisional and departmental, class, location, tracking category, level reporting in Fathom as well. So you can bring in those departmental or divisional data into Fathom and filter your reports based on that as well. All right, I'm gonna jump over to a sample report just to show you the output, right off the bat, what you could get out of Fathom. This is a sample report we've created. The demo company we've created is a global furniture brand, and they have both physical retail as well as an e-commerce channel. So obviously we have a nicely designed cover page here with the company's logo. And then you can include a basis of preparation in all your reports by default. We also have some notes in here, so you can add commentary directly into the report via text and add any key points, action items that you want to communicate. We see some key indicators here as well, showing trends, good or bad, in some of the key metrics that we're tracking for this business. Again, some more KPIs showing some of these key numbers with a little bit more detail. We also see a revenue breakdown and cost of sales breakdown. And this is showing across the different accounts how sales is broken down for this period. And then we also see a breakdown by company. So this is actually 4 entities. QuickBooks are 0 companies, and we can see the revenue breakdown across those, as well as cost of sales. So that's all flowing through. You can see our KPI results, and we're tracking a lot of KPIs for this company, but we can easily see how we're performing versus target, as well as, again, as the trend for each KPI. And then there's a few, so we get into the charts and showing trends of performance over time. Very easy to create custom charts like this in Fathom that are really tailored to the business. We also are building the forecast in here so we can see some of the plans that we've made for this business and where those are landing in terms of a timeline. And down at the bottom, we can see the impact to cash on hand as those plans hit the forecast. We can also show revenue forecast in a chart. So we've got a couple different scenarios here, and we can see those plotted out. We've got the baseline forecast, a best case scenario, and a worst case scenario that we've created. And we can see where all those land in comparison. And then finally, the consolidated financials. Again, this is a multi-entity. So we can see the different stores or locations and see the consolidated total. And we can see the breakdown of the financials within that. So that's kind of the end result or the deliverable that a client will receive. I'll jump into Fathom now into my demo account and show you around a little bit. So the first piece are the analysis tools, and we're in this same group, so we can see different metrics that we're tracking. I've also added some non-financial KPIs in here. So I've added the percent of return customers, customer satisfaction score, and then a breakdown of online sales, retail sales, as well as wages as a percent of sales. So these were very, very easy to create custom KPIs. And then once you create a custom KPI, you can use that across multiple clients or multiple companies. So the analysis tools are a suite of different tools. I'll just give you a few examples here. This tool allows you to analyze the break-even point in operating profit. And so we can see where that break-even point was. And we can actually move up and down and see at different levels of revenue or sales volume, what operating profit would have been, and where our break-even point is in profitability is really critical. We've also got the goal seek tool. So this is a great way to do some really quick scenario planning. You can choose the metric you want to analyze. So take gross profit as an example, and we can see the drivers that impact gross profit. We can actually move these to see what would happen if we were able to increase price by just 1% and see immediately how that would impact our gross profit, or potentially lowering our variable cost of sales by 1%. So you can build a plan very quickly and just analyze different drivers in the business very, very quickly. Another tool that's very popular is the cash flow waterfall chart. So this is a cash flow statement that is visualized essentially. And so we're seeing the inflows and outflows that make up operating free and net cash flow. And we can actually put a visual to, why our cash flow is the way it is. We can see that with more understanding. There's a number of other tools here that help you analyze the business, but wanted to move on to reports. So you saw the report I had downloaded. The report center, just briefly, kind of shows you you're able to access some report templates right out of the box. So you can use the Fathom standard report templates as a starting point as you get going, and then customize them from there. You can also publish reports online. So instead of having to download PDF reports and send them out, you can simply publish a report and it would be viewable online in a browser, secure, only viewable by a user that you've invited into Fathom. You can also schedule those reports to create automatically. So if I have a template that I want to use, I can simply select that template and I can create a schedule that will automatically create my report for me each month. So just another time saving, going back to that automation piece, especially at scale using Fathom with a large number of clients, you can really cut down your monthly reporting times each period. And then we also have forecasting. So this is a forecast that I've created for this company, and I'll just walk you through some of the elements here. So this is currently we're on the profit and loss, and right now we're looking at March 2023 as the last period of actuals. So April forward is all forecast, and we can see those numbers forecasted out. Fathom has a number of different options for how you want to forecast. So I chose to use a linear regression. We call it the smart prediction. So this is going to use past results and it's going to project forward for you. And you can also include seasonal adjustments in that will use seasonality in the past to predict seasonality in the future. So that's a really great way to get started with a forecast very quickly. But there are lots of other methods you can use to forecast. You can use a previous period and then add a change on top of that. You can use a formula. So you can actually create a formula that would calculate your forecast for you. And you can use any variable from the profit and loss or balance sheet in that formula. You can also use drivers. So for example, if I wanted to forecast revenue based on average order value and number of transactions in a period, you can do that in Fathom. You can forecast your revenue that way. Another great way to do this is for cost of sales. If you know your rough percentage cost of sales, then you can easily calculate your cost of sales using a formula as well. And it would just be driven off of revenue. You can also link to a budget. So you can import a budget to Fathom and then use that budget as your starting point for your forecast. Some other key elements. So for all of your profit and loss items, you can use the cash timing profiles. So these are going to dictate where the cash actually lands once that revenue has been recognized. So for e-commerce, I'm guessing most of the time, most of the cash is collected up front for revenue, but on the expense side, potentially you're paying suppliers, on terms. And so you can actually forecast very easily where that cash will actually be withdrawn. Potentially you're paying 50% up front and then 50% in the month after. And so Fathom will automatically input the actual cash according to your rules here. So once you've created your profit and loss forecast, you can also view the balance sheet, and you can make adjustments, journals directly on the balance sheet if there's transactions coming up that aren't incorporated. And then you can view the cash flow statement that is automatically tying the profit and loss and balance sheet together here in your forecast as well. And you can add drivers and update them here. Beyond that, there are some other features that really help you when it comes to business planning. So I mentioned scenarios. I have a best case scenario created here. So if I turn that scenario on and you watch the cash on hand down at the bottom of the screen, you'll see when I turn that on, my cash on hand immediately respins according to the scenario. And you can create multiple scenarios, and those scenarios can be completely different versions of your forecast. So you can create very different scenarios and analyze the differences there, just allowing you to build confidence in your plans, understand the downside, understand the upside, and make your decisions from a position of strength. Another really cool feature is the micro forecasts. So micro forecasts allow you to plan for specific initiatives or events. So if I go to the business roadmap, which is a more visual way of looking at the forecast, I've got a couple micro forecasts I've created here for a new warehouse purchase, hiring some customer support representatives, and a summer brand awareness campaign. And I can actually move these activities around in time, and I can see how they impact my key metrics. Maybe I want to move these initiatives back, and I can see my forecast automatically recalculate based on moving those initiatives around. Creating micro forecasts is very easy. So maybe if we wanted to analyze getting a new loan for the business, we've got some options here for essentially a setup wizard that allows you to easily forecast these things. Some of the main business activities here. If we wanted to add a new loan, we can simply input this information, select the accounts that it'll be tied to, enter our interest information, as well as the loan terms. You can even forecast a balloon payment if you'd like. And then once we add that micro forecast, we can see all of the cash impacts of that loan. So we're immediately forecasting interest expense, cash on hand increasing with the loan, debt increasing as well, and the equity impacts of all of that. And once we have that in our forecast, we can move it around in time to coordinate with our plan. The forecast can be incorporated into your reports that you create in Fathom, like I showed earlier. And you can always view your assumptions in the report as well to communicate to other stakeholders what the assumptions were that went into the numbers. The last piece I wanted to show is the consolidation. So I've created this consolidated group here. If you wanted to create consolidated reports, it's very easy to do. And we can jump in here and view one. So I've got my consolidated group analysis report created. And now we're looking at results for the entire group. And similar reporting elements here, but I can show the total performance of the organization in the financials, as well as those financials by company. You can also enter eliminations in Fathom if there are any intercompany transactions. And as I mentioned, this is presenting in US dollars, but it's a global company, so it's doing the multi-currency FX translation for you in the background.
Awesome.
Great. That's all I've got on the demo.
Cool. Thanks, James. And thank you, Amy. We do have a few questions, but I think what was great about this demonstration is it showcased that from an e-commerce perspective, because there's so much going on Amazon, Shopify, eBay, Etsy, Walmart, and all these other sales channels, it's so critically important to get the highest quality data into QuickBooks or Xero for reconciliation so that you can then translate that data into these beautiful visual reports and Fathom that clients can understand. And effectively, when you bring it all together, it's really easy to start to see why leading e-commerce accounting practices are leveraging these technologies together to level up their services for e-commerce businesses and to help them succeed, not only through high quality, accurate data that their clients can have confidence in, but data that they can understand through a lot of the visual reports, James, that you were showing. So super awesome. Thanks so much for showcasing that. We'll now jump into the Q&A. So I'll go with the first one here. There's a few for A2X and I'll jump into the ones for Fathom. But Amy, will A2X account for transactions on all the Amazon selling platforms? We have a client that sells books on Amazon.ca, .com, .au, all over the world. And will the software account for the various currencies?
Yes, we will. So how it works, so the example that I showed you was just North America account. So it would bring in transactions that occurred on Amazon.com, Amazon in Canada, and Amazon in Mexico. But if you're selling, say, on some European or UK marketplaces, then you would just have a separate account. So it's kind of done in regions. But yes, it will bring in all of the different marketplaces. You might just need multiple connections, and it will account for currencies as well. So the key thing is that it will identify the currency that it was sold on that marketplace and bring it into A2X that way. Then on the accounting side, you just need to make sure that you have multi-currency set up within your QuickBooks or Xero to be able to manage those different transactions and make sure that it's converting to the right currency.
Beautiful. Okay. Next up, can A2X split taxes for different regions like Canada GST and BC PST or various US states?
I saw this question come in. Unfortunately, the short answer is no. So there are some limitations on the data that we can get from Amazon being split down by region. So A2X can't actually break that out. And then I guess on the Shopify side, it kind of depends on what accounting software that you're using. But in most cases, what we recommend is that you map all of the tax to a liability account. So you might have seen the example that I showed. It was all no tax rate applied. So you'd map that to a liability account within your QuickBooks.
Awesome. And then James, question for you. Can Fathom produce a report in USD currency for Canadian company with CAD as functional currency set up in QBO and Xero?
Oh, good question. Yeah, so if there's two entities, we can, and one's in Canadian, one's in US, we can just have it present in the group present in USD. That's no problem. With one entity in CAD that you want to present in USD, there's a workaround. We can definitely do that for you. It just involves creating like a dummy company that's in USD that then you can convert to, but it's definitely possible.
So question for Amy. Multi-currency payments coming into PayPal from various parts of the world. Can we segregate it based on the currency type, like USD, CAD, AUD, using A2X and send it to QBO accordingly?
Yes, so A2X will get the information from PayPal through your Shopify store or BigCommerce. So if you're selling on a Shopify store and it has PayPal attached, it will bring in the currency that it's sold into. And then I guess it just depends on your setup within QuickBooks if you've got different bank accounts or what you're getting paid into. PayPal is a bit of a complicated one because some people use PayPal for like making sales and things like that. But yes, the information from your e-commerce channel will come in different currencies, and then how you reconcile that within your accounting software. There's a few different workarounds for that. PayPal also have a direct integration into the accounting software. So some people switch on the direct integration and they have all of their transactions coming in from PayPal. So A2X can work with that. But sometimes sellers, when they get larger, that becomes a bit of a problem because they've got a lot of information coming in. So A2X is a workaround for that as well. So
I love the nature of the questions that we've had as well, as like they're all related to multi-currency, they're all related to multi-country, right? It just kind of gives you some perspective into why e-commerce is a little bit more complex than traditional brick and mortar retailers selling in one location to one customer base, and why tools like A2X and Fathom become all the more important.
And one thing I also will say is we have an awesome customer success team. So these questions, we understand that e-commerce is really challenging. So if you are an accountant or bookkeeper, you can sign up for the A2X partner program. And then as part of that, you get a lot of hand-holding and onboarding to set up your first account so that you can understand how it all works. So yeah, to be honest, the support team is probably the reason that we have so many 5-star reviews, because a lot of them have backgrounds in e-commerce accounting themselves. So yeah, they're awesome.
And that's a good way to finish this off. So for those in the audience that aren't using A2X yet, Amy, does A2X have a trial account, a free account, anything of that nature?
Yeah, so you can set up a free trial and it will bring in your last 3 settlements. So you can have a bit of a play around, and then from there, A2X has a bunch of different plans depending on whether you're selling on one channel or multiple channels, and depending on how many orders that you're doing. But yeah, jump in and have a free trial and see how the data looks.
And then James, same question for you.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a free trial, no credit card required. You can just sign up, connect your company, and give it a go. And I would say the same thing. Our customer support team's awesome, and also the reason we have lots of 5-star reviews. They definitely carry the team. So, and they're very knowledgeable. So
you're both selling yourself short. I'm sure you both play a part in that. Great. Well, I just want to thank everyone for joining us on today's webinar. Really fun. Thank you so much for having. Thank you so much for coming. And if we don't see you before the holidays, happy holidays, happy New Year's. All the best in the new year. And yeah, we'll chat with you soon. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
See you later.